Good morning, class 9 students. I welcome you all on this online virtual digital learning platform provided by Jagriti Classes. So, we were doing our chapter 5 of 9, that is the chapter related to biology, that is fundamental unit of life. So, this is class 9th, chapter 5. We have already started this chapter, that is the fundamental unit of life, and in this chapter we are dealing about cells basically. What is the fundamental unit of life? So in your introductory class I already told you about cell, that this cell is known as the structural and functional unit of life. And why so is this referred to as structural and functional? We have already seen that. So now talking about various organelles or different parts of this cell. So we have different parts in a cell, or we can say that cell may be classified into different ways. That is, it can be classified into two broad categories based on where the cell is present. If this cell is present inside any animal, then we'll refer to as animal cells. And the cells present inside the plants are called plant cells. So this you all know obviously, that based on the location or where the cell belongs, we can classify the cell as animal cell or plant cell. Now talking about the next, we discussed different types of cells also, that is, if any organism contains only a single cell. If any organism contains a single cell, then such organisms are referred as unicellular. And if it contains more than one cell, then you call it to be a multicellular animal or organism. So we have done this classification, and the basis for this classification is what? It is the number of cells present in any organism. If you have a single cell in an organism, you will call it unicellular. And if you have many cells, that is more than one, then you call it to be a multicellular organism. Unicellular organism is quite simpler, that is only one single cell is present, and that single cell is responsible for all life processes. And what do you mean by life processes? I told you that all the phenomena or processes which are responsible for life, they are called life processes. For example, you can say that respiration, then you have excretion, then you have ingestion of food, digestion of food. All these are termed as life processes. So in unicellular organisms, only a single cell is responsible to carry out all life processes. That is, these are single-celled organisms. Whereas in multicellular organism, you have a group of specific cells which are determined to perform a specific function. That means you can say that multicellular organisms are quite complex as compared to these unicellular organisms. And in multicellular organisms, because we have millions of cells, and these cells, I already told you the hierarchy, that is cells combine or group together, then their group which performs a specific function is referred as tissues. So in this multicellular organism, we can say that division of labor is seen. Or I can write division of work. That is, all the life processes are not carried by a single cell or a single group. We have different groups and we have assigned them different functions or different duties. So this what we discussed in our previous lecture, and then we started about the first part, that is plasma membrane. So I told you plasma membrane is a very important organelle or a part. It is also known as cell membrane. Then plasma membrane you will find in both. That is, plasma membrane is present in animal cell as well as in plant cell. Then this plasma membrane has a very special name. That is, it is called semi-permeable membrane. You call the plasma membrane to be semi-permeable membrane. And this is again a very important question. So now I hope you can tell that why plasma membrane or your cell membrane is called semi-permeable. Because it allows only certain substance to pass through it, and it restricts or stops the other substances. In turn, this plasma membrane is called semi-permeable, or you can even say it is selectively permeable. Selectively permeable would be a more exact term to what we want to define. That is, selectively means it will allow some of the substances to move through it, to pass through it, and it will not allow, or it would stop the others to pass through them. And this movement can be towards inside the cell or from inside to outside. That is, let's suppose you have a cell here. Consider this is a animal cell. Why not plant cell? I'll tell you later that in plant cell, we have one more additional layer outside this plasma membrane, and that additional layer is called cell wall. So I'm considering this as a simple cell, you consider it. Then what you have, this outermost covering is your plasma membrane or cell membrane. Now let's suppose we have different substances which I want to transport inside, and some substances which are already present inside, and I want to transport it to the outside of my cell. You know, as I am referring that this is the cell, the boundary which marks the cell, you can refer it to be plasma membrane. Then you have inside the cell a jelly-like substance which is called cytoplasm. We'll deal with cytoplasm, its functions, everything, okay, in detail. But let's suppose this is your plasma membrane. Inside you have a liquid or a fluid which you refer to as cytoplasm. So we can say that this is the inside part of our cell, and this is the outer part or outside of our cell. Now what do we observe? That this plasma membrane is actually porous, okay? This is a membrane. Membrane means it is a porous structure. You have many minute or very fine holes or pores in this. So we have many minute pores in this through which these substances undergo the movement, okay? So now considering if it allows A to move inside through it and it allows C, but because of the size restriction or because of any other reason, we are not going in detail corresponding to your syllabus. So we only have to understand the term semi-permeable or selectively permeable membrane. That is, it will allow A and C to move through it inside, and it would allow this F and E to move outside. But I am saying due to size restriction, that is the pore size, the diameter of the hole present in the membrane would be smaller as compared to the size of B. So rather it would not allow B to pass through it. So this is what selectively permeable means, that it is allowing A and C certain materials to pass through it and move inside, but it is not allowing B to move inside. In the similar manner, it is allowing, let's suppose, E and F to move outside, but it is not allowing the transport of X and Y substances. So in turn, we say that plasma membrane is your selectively permeable membrane. That is, it allows only particular substances to move through it, and it restricts the entry and exit of other substance. So this is what we discussed in the last class. Then I also told you a very important difference between osmosis and diffusion. So that was important. Now what we are starting, we'll study three types of solutions, that is isotonic, hypertonic and hypotonic. And you'll see that what do you mean firstly by these terms, isotonic, hypotonic and hypertonic solution. Then if you put your plant or animal cell inside these solutions, then what changes you would observe? You would see three changes, that is the cell may remain in the similar shape as it was before, or it may swell up, it may burst, or it may undergo shrinkage. So we have three kinds of solutions with us. That is, the first comes your hypotonic solution. Then the next one would be isotonic. And the last which we'll deal with will be your hypertonic solution. So let's understand what do you mean by the term hypotonic, isotonic and hypertonic. Remember, these are the kinds of solutions. We are dealing with three different kinds of solutions which are named differently. Now we'll see what's the difference between these three kinds of solution. So hypotonic, let's suppose I have a beaker which is filled with your hypotonic solution, okay? this contains any hypotonic solution. Now I put a plant cell or an animal cell. Let's suppose simply I am putting my cell inside this hypotonic solution. So whenever I put or drop a cell inside my hypotonic solution, what would I observe? I would observe that this cell swells up. The cell will swell up. Why this cell swells up? Why does it enlarges in size? Because the hypotonic solution, this hypotonic solution moves inside this cell, and in turn the cell cavity enlarges. So we say that the first point would be our cell would swell up when you put your cell in hypotonic solution. Okay. The next point would be why this cell swelled up, why it got swollen, because this solution moved to the inside of the cell. So our cell swells up because movement of solution occurs to the inside of this cell. So, as we have already discussed in our previous classes about osmosis and diffusion, and the basic difference was whenever the movement occurs through the semi-permeable membrane, that is through a porous membrane, you call the term to be osmosis. That is, osmosis involves movement of a fluid through the semi-permeable membrane. Then here, because we are dealing with fluid, so we'll call the phenomena of entry or exit of water to be osmosis and not diffusion. So we have, this is our hypotonic solution. Hypotonic solution means which contains less amount of solute and more amount of solvent. That is, you can refer this hypotonic solution to be a dilute solution. Dilute means which contains less percent of solute in your solvent. Let's suppose this hypotonic solution, as given in your books also, the examples would be if I dissolve 1 teaspoon sugar or salt, anything you can take, okay? If I dissolve such less quantity, that is 1 teaspoon of sugar or salt, which would be your solute, and I dissolve it in, let's say, 1000 ml of water, and here water would be our solvent. So you can see that we have dissolved very less amount of solute in our solvent. So this I can call it a dilute solution. Dilute means which have less amount or less percentage of solute present in your given solvent. So this is what you refer to as a dilute. And if you increase the amount of solute, that is amount of solute in per ml of solvent, if you increase it, then you will call it a concentrated solution. That is, if I, let's suppose, take here 100 teaspoon of sugar, that is your solute, and dissolve it in 1000 ml, or you can say 1 liter water, then here the solution which you would get would be a concentrated solution. So here, because the amount of solute is very less, we call it a dilute solution, and dilute solution behaves as your hypotonic solution. Whereas if you increase the amount of solute or the percentage of solute, then you call this solution to be concentrated solution. That is, we can also refer this to be a hypertonic solution. So hypertonic solutions are the concentrated solutions which we use. Now this concentrated solution means you have more amount of solute present in per ml of solution. That is, if I take equal quantities of both the solution, I take 10 ml from this solution and I take out 10 ml from my hypertonic or concentrated solution, then I would observe that if this is a sugar solution, then I would observe that I am not getting any taste of sugar in this solution. But if you taste this, that is, if you take 1000 ml water and you dissolve 100 teaspoons of sugar, Now what you do is you take out a small sample from this. That is, you take out 10 ml of solution from this. Then you'll definitely get the taste of sugar in this. That is, it would taste sweeter. But this solution will not have any taste, or it would taste very minimum, because very minimum amount of sugar is dissolved in it. So this is what you understand by the term hypotonic, and here is hypertonic. Now this hypotonic makes your cell to swell up, or it makes the cell to get enlarged. Okay, so whenever a cell is put in hypotonic solution, it would get enlarged or it would get swollen up. And you can remember, because the sound of this hypo means it would become swell or fat. So hypo means your cell would get enlarged, and hyper means it would get shrinked up. So this is the basic difference between hypotonic and hypertonic. So when we put our solution in hypotonic, okay, the sound is signifying hypo. Hypo means the cell will enlarge. And here the term hyper means it would shrink up. So this is what, when you put your cell in hypotonic solution, then the cell swells up. The reason for this, because the movement of solution, or I can write the movement of water, because we have high amount of water compared to our solute, that is, amount of water, our solvent is high outside the cell as compared to the amount of water present inside the cell. Because amount of water present in our solution, that is present outside the cell, is quite high as compared to the amount of water present inside the cell. So what I would observe, the movement of water from outside to inside of the cell, and as a result the cell would swell up. Why the water is moving? Because I told you in osmosis is the movement of solvent or movement of water. Let's again discuss the definition of osmosis. Osmosis was the movement of water molecules. Okay, remember, in osmosis water or solvent moves. It is the movement of water from its higher concentration to its lower concentration, to the lower concentration. So osmosis is the movement of water molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration, and yes, involving a semi-permeable or selectively permeable membrane. So this is what you understand by osmosis. So the important terms given here are, it is the movement of water or solvent molecules. Remember, the solute does not move. In osmosis, you have the movement of your solvent, that is your water. The next is, water moves from higher concentration to lower concentration. That is, movement of water is from where the water molecules are present in excess. Let's suppose this, I have a cell. In here I have large number of water molecules compared to smaller number of water molecules inside the cell. So what would be the direction of our movement? I said that what moves? Water here, which is acting as a solvent, it moves. Okay. Now the movement is from higher to lower concentration. This signifies that the concentration or the side which contains more water, then the quantity which has more water, it would shift to its less concentration. So here, this water molecules, where they are present in excess, they would move where they have a low concentration. So water moves from outside to inside in this case. So this is what we mean by the term osmosis. Now we have that in hypotonic solution, hypotonic meant that it is a dilute solution. That is, dilute means you have a large amount of water and very less amount of solute. So because you are having large amount of water and the water present in your cell is having a very less amount, so the movement would be observed from outside to inside. Because in hypotonic solution what you have is, this is the case which we are dealing with is hypotonic solution. So this is your cell which is kept in hypotonic solution. So you will observe that the concentration of water molecules outside is greater as compared to concentration of water molecules inside the cell, and in turn the water molecules move inside because this is simple osmosis and the movement is through this semi-permeable membrane, that is your plasma membrane. So this is the case of hypotonic solution, and as a result your cell would get swollen or it would enlarge in size. Whereas comparing this with the case of hypertonic, let's suppose you have a cell here which is in turn covered by your plasma membrane, and here the solution is hypertonic. Hypertonic means you have less water and more solute, that is more sugar or salt, whatever solute you are taking. So when you have less water outside and the amount of water present inside the cell is quite very high, then the movement would be in what direction? Correct. The movement would be from inside, because the movement is always from where the water is present in excess to the side where the water is present in a limited amount. So because water is present more in quantity inside the cell, so the movement would be from inside to outside. So this would be the movement. And as you see, when this cell will lose water, then that is when the water will flow out, the cell would get shrinked. So here in case of hypotonic, your cell gets swollen up, but here in the case of hypertonic solution, your cell shrinks up, shrinks in size. Okay, so this is the basic difference between hypotonic and hypertonic solution. And the last case, that is of isotonic. Isotonic solution. Iso, the term iso means same, and the term tonic means concentration. So whenever the concentration of the fluid present inside your cell and the concentration of the solution which you have taken in your container or beaker, both the fluid have the same concentration, then you say where the movement would occur. That is, let's suppose your cell contains 6 drops of water or 6 molecules of water. And outside also, the solution which we have taken also contains 6 molecules of water. So we have taken the same concentration of what? Same concentration of the fluid which is present inside the cell. It is similar to the fluid concentration which is present outside the cell. Because they both have similar concentration, no concentration is higher and none other is lower. On the same concentration, no net movement would be observed. So here the cell will retain its original shape. That is, it will neither swell up or it would neither get shrinked. So here the cell maintains its original shape, and we call this to be an isotonic solution. So this was all about the solution kinds, and that is the how different concentration of solution affects the volume or shape of your cell. So this was all about isotonic. We can also write one more point in this hypotonic and hypertonic solutions, that is, whenever the cell is kept in hypotonic solution, the water will move inside the cell. But up to what time the water will move? Or we said that in hypertonic, the water moves outside. That is, water moves out of the cell, and thereby the cell gets shrinked up. So till what time the water will move out? Okay, can you tell me that till what time this movement would continue of the water? This movement will occur till the time when the concentration of water, becomes equal on both the sides. This is a very important concept which you should easily understand that the movement would continue whenever both the sides of the water, that is the side inside the cell and this environment outside the cell, jab tak the concentration of fluid inside and outside will not become equal, the movement would be carried out. But once the concentration of fluid inside the cell and outside the cell, it will become equal, the movement of water would stop. So the movement of water continues till both the sides get equal concentration. Here from both the sides, I mean that the environment inside the cell gets an equal concentration with your solution present in the beaker or your container. So till here the movement will occur, and in the next you will not see any kind of movement. So is the case with isotonic, because here the concentration is same, that is the concentration of water in the beaker and in the cell, these both have same concentration, and in turn no movement is observed. So this was all about the different kinds of solutions. So this we have completed your plasma membrane. That was how do plasma, what do you mean by plasma membrane, then what is its function, why this plasma membrane is called a selectively permeable membrane. Now next what we have is a term endocytosis. So what do you mean by this term endocytosis? As we studied previously that plasma membrane is made up of lipids and proteins. Plasma membrane is composed of lipids and proteins, and in turn this plasma membrane is flexible in nature. It is not rigid, it can easily bend off. So this is quite flexible, and this flexibility, this property is used by amoeba to engulf its food particles or engulf the nearby food particles. So this property is used by amoeba to engulf its food, and this process of ingestion or engulfing of food by amoeba is referred to as endocytosis. So this is the explanation to the definition given in your books, that is, what do you mean by the term endocytosis? Endocytosis is the process when amoeba engulfs its nearby food. This phenomena is called endocytosis. Then in this process, amoeba uses its plasma membrane, that is the outermost covering, and because plasma membrane is made up of lipids and proteins, it is flexible in nature, and thereby this flexible behavior of plasma membrane helps amoeba to engulf the food. You all know that amoeba forms a pseudopodia. Let's suppose this is your unicellular organism amoeba. Whenever it encounters a food particle in the nearby surroundings, this is your food particle. So this amoeba, by changing its body shape, it moves towards this food particle. Now what happens is that this amoeba forms a kind of pseudopodia. That is, it forms leg structure. This is known as pseudopodia, and it is also called false feet. Okay, because it forms a feet-like or leg-like structure and in turn captures the food or engulfs the food to its inside cavity. So this process is known as endocytosis, and it is shown by other unicellular organisms also. Let's suppose if you think that your plasma membrane would not be flexible or it may be rigid, then if the plasma membrane would be rigid, this amoeba and other unicellular organisms would not be able to engulf their nearby food, and in turn this endocytosis could not occur. So flexibility of plasma membrane is another important feature which helps amoeba in taking its food, and this is in turn called the process of endocytosis. Now next we'll discuss the next part of the cell, that is cell wall. The first we discussed was all about your plasma membrane, which is also called cell membrane. Now the next is cell wall. So the first point regarding cell wall is that it is the outermost covering cell wall is the outermost covering present in plants. Okay, so cell wall is present in plant cells, while the next point would be this cell wall is absent in animal cells. That is, animals lack cell wall. They do not have cell wall. The outermost covering in animal cells is just the plasma membrane or the cell membrane. So it is present as an outermost covering in the plant cell and it is absent in animal cell. Whereas the plasma membrane which we studied, plasma membrane was present in both animal cells as well as in plant cells. Then the next is that it is not flexible, or you can say it is rigid in nature. This is a contrasting feature as compared to plasma membrane. Plasma membrane was flexible, whereas this cell wall is not flexible, that is, it is rigid. Rigid means it is not flexible as your cell membrane. Then the rigidity is dependent on the composition, that is, what the cell wall is made up of. So, cell wall is composed of, or you can write, cell wall is made up of cellulose. And this cellulose gives its rigid nature or rigidity property. So, cellulose is a very complex molecule. That is, it is a polymer which you'll read in higher classes. But remember that cell wall is made up of cellulose and this cellulose provides the rigidity to your cell wall. Then the last would be the function of cell wall. There are many functions of cell wall. This cell wall helps to maintain shape. The first function would be it is useful to maintain the shape of the cell. And then the next one is that this cell wall helps to give mechanical support at the time of stress or injury. So the next is it provides mechanical strength and support. It provides mechanical strength and support. And you can write one more, that because it provides strength, it provides the cell a support and gives it a definite shape. It prevents the cell from getting injured. It prevents the cell from getting injuries or getting injured. So it prevents the cell from getting injured. Because cell is a very delicate part and this cell wall, which is the strong part or the rigid part, supports the cell and in turn it also prevents the cell from getting injured. So this was all about cell wall. Just remember that it is the outermost covering which is present in your plant cell. Then this wall is absent in animal cells. If you are asked, can you name the outermost covering in animal cells? Then the answer would be outermost covering of animal cells is your cell membrane or plasma membrane. But the outermost covering in plant cell is cell wall. Then this cell wall is rigid in nature. Rigid means this is not flexible. Why this is not flexible? Because it is composed of cellulose, which is a very complex and strength giving compound. Then you have next is this cell wall, that is the functions. First function is it helps to maintain the shape of the cell. Next is it gives strength and support to the plant. And the next is it prevents the cell from getting injuries. So this is the account of cell wall. Then the next process which we'll study now would be plasmolysis. The topics which we are doing now in this class, that is, we did endocytosis and now we are on plasmolysis. These are of immense importance because short questions are definitely asked in frequent examinations about what do you write a short note on endocytosis or write a short note on plasmolysis. So we'll see what do you understand by the process of plasmolysis. Firstly, this plasmolysis is related to plant cells only. Okay, this process we are studying in plant cells because plant cell contains a cell wall. So you can remember here that this plasmolysis term starts from the letter P. So it is observed in plants. And because we are dealing with the smallest unit, so we'll write it is observed in plant cells. Because P here denotes plant. Then the next is what? Firstly, I'll explain you the process, what happens in plasmolysis. We say that when you take a plant cell, this is my plant cell, and you dip this plant cell in a solution of higher concentration. That is, this is your hypertonic solution. Hypertonic solution we just discussed just recently. So we have put our plant cell in a hypertonic solution. So where would the water move? Due to osmosis, the movement of water which would be observed in this would be the water from plant cell would move out. Because we have a hypertonic solution. Hypertonic means that you have less quantity of water and more quantity of solute here. That is, hypertonic solution is a concentrated solution, and here what you have in plant cell would act as the dilute solution as compared to this. That is, amount of water in plant cell would be comparatively more when you compare it to the quantity of water present in the external hypertonic solution. And in turn, water will move because of osmosis from higher concentration to lower concentration. Higher concentration is inside, less concentration is outside. So water moves from inside to outside the cell, and as a result, because water will move to the outside of the cell, what you will observe in the next situation that this is your cell wall. Because we are considering here plant cell, so the outermost covering is your cell wall. Next you have one more covering, that is your plasma membrane. And as you are observing that this water which is present inside the cell is moving out, then what you see is this plasma membrane which was originally present without any gap, that is, it was stick to this cell wall, it would get, that is, a vacant space would be created between your cell wall and your plasma membrane. Okay, because the water is constantly coming out and because the cell is shrinking away, so all the contents of the cell would come out of this. Now as plasmolysis is carried out, what do you observe or what do you see is that your cell wall, it is rigid, so it will not shrink, but this plasma membrane will shrink and it would in turn become a ball-like structure, a very small structure, and it would be accumulated in a certain part of cell. So this is what a plasmolyzed cell looks like. But because this cell wall is rigid, so it will not undergo any shrinkage and all the contents of this cell would be accumulated at a particular region of the cell. So this is what you mean by plasmolysis. So now summing up the topic, I'll just write down the definition. Plasmolysis is the process in which the cell, plant cell, shrinks down and all the contents of the cell get accumulated in one corner or in a one particular region of the cell. So this was all about the topic plasmolysis. You have to draw this diagram and then you can write the definition, that is, it is a process in which cell shrinks down and all the contents of the cell gets accumulated in one particular region. So today we discussed endocytosis, cell wall and plasmolysis. Now we'll continue our class in the next video. Thank you for joining the class.